Kevin Palmieri, welcome.
Thank you, my friend. I'm very excited to chat.
It's very good to have you.
I appreciate
I
it.
want to start today's episode by talking about expectations. A very common reason why people quit nowadays, either be it business, fitness goals, relationships, you name it, is having unrealistic expectations. You thought your business is going to make money in 3 months. You thought you're going to lose 5 kilos in 3 weeks, but obviously it's obviously not. So I wonder, what are your thoughts on what has skewed people's expectations to such degree, and what can we do to escape such thoughts that keep us quitting over and over again?
Man, we're getting into it right off the bat. Okay, cool. So my thought, very similar to what you said, I think the three reasons people don't succeed is, one, they have false expectations. 2, they have a false approach, or 3, they have a false time perspective. And right now we're talking about the expectations. I think that false expectations come from, now more than ever, social media. Again, I have 2,000 podcast episodes almost, and we're successful, quote unquote. I am the results not typical, though. I'm a survivor. We made it. And for every one of us, there's 1,000 shows that didn't make it. I'm results not typical. I don't think your expectations should be to end up where I did, because I think that's dangerous. Now, I'm not saying that can't be a goal or a desire, but I think the other part too of this is, when your desires become your expectations, that's a very dangerous place to live. Desire is what we want. And if what you want is what you expect, especially when it comes to goal setting and dream chasing, that kind of is a recipe for disaster. So I think that's a piece of it. I think social media and technology have created a very unrealistic expectation of success. That's one. The other one is, it's really easy to say, I really want this, and then your desire for the outcome ends up becoming what your expectation is. And I think the best way, and it's going to sound fortune cookie-like, but I think the best way to detach from that is to find a process that you actually enjoy. Because if you enjoy the process, the result that becomes successful is just an added benefit. Imagine if I didn't like podcasting. This journey would have been impossible. I would have quit a long time ago.
Absolutely.
But now I make money, and I have a business, and I'm quote unquote successful, and I still get to podcast. That's a drastically different life than, I appreciate it. That's a drastically different life than if I said, well, hopefully one day this podcast will pay off. No, it's paid off with fulfillment the entire time. It didn't always pay off with success or financial, but I would still do this for free if I had to, because I love it. So I think that's a really important facet, is if you love the process of what you're doing, the results that come with it are an added benefit eventually. It still takes time.
Right. And that's why you hear so many people telling you, find your passion, find something you really love to, because it's just going to give you the drive on those difficult moments. Just keep you going.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it's just a nightmare. It's just a grind. No one wants to be on the grind for 70 years of their life.
Right.
You want to enjoy the process.
Yeah.
This reminds me of also how skewed our definitions of success are nowadays. And it breaks my heart, really, especially when it comes to young men, how they've been tricked into the money chasing trap. How money and Bugattis and hedonism will make them happy, which I don't think is true. From your bio, I gathered that you've learned a great deal from pursuing money, only to later hit rock bottom. Talk to me about your experience, please.
Yeah, I was somebody who was raised by my mom and my grandmother. I didn't know my dad, so I didn't have a male role model for my entire life, really. I've always been searching for one. We were lower middle class. I remember we had a 2-bedroom apartment, and it was my mom, my grandmother, and I. So the nights that my mom didn't work, because she worked third shift, she would sleep on the couch. She didn't even have her own bedroom. And that was just normal for me. I was like, yeah, this is complete. I didn't even think about it. Just, this is my life. This is normal. So we grew up lower middle class. I was under the assumption that if I found a way to fill all the voids that I was raised with, that I would be happy and fulfilled. So I was somebody who didn't have a lot of significance. So I went and tried to get in as good a shape as possible. I was somebody who always felt like I didn't get any attention from women. So I figured, well, if I find a hot girlfriend, like that's going to fix that. And then if I can make a lot of money, how can I not be happy? So if you looked at me when I was 25, I had a model girlfriend. My girlfriend was a model. I was getting ready to compete in a bodybuilding show, so I was quite literally in the best shape I will ever be in. And I had a job that paid me anywhere from $60 to $120 an hour. And in the US, that's a lot of money. It's a really good wage for somebody who didn't go to college and has no higher education. So if you saw me from the outside looking in, you would probably think I was super happy. But I wasn't. My mental health was terrible. I wasn't a super supportive partner because I was so insecure. And then my girlfriend ended up leaving me. After my bodybuilding show, I was so depressed. I was so anxious. I had an eating disorder. It was brutal. But I fell into the trap of, well, my girlfriend left, and yeah, things suck right now, but maybe I just haven't made enough money yet. Maybe if I go make more money, the rest of my problems will go away. So the next year, I grinded my face off, and I spent 10 months traveling up and down the East Coast of the U.S. for my job. And I got to the end of the year, and I had made $100,000 at 26 with no college degree. But same thing. My bank account was better, and I had more opportunities and options because of that. Internally, I was no more confident. My self-worth was no better. My mental health was no better. None of that. I didn't feel any better about me. And I realized that I have lived most of my life unconsciously. That was the breaking point for me. I don't know why I do what I do. I think these external things are going to fix internal voids. I think it's common because if you have a core wound of not good enough, and that's the way that you have felt your entire life, you're probably going to connect, well, I didn't feel good enough because I didn't have blank, 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 blank. Let me go accumulate blank, 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 blank. And I think, for me at least, I don't think it was an external pressure from society. I think it was an internal pressure from me, assuming that if I just got everything I always wanted, I would be happy. Did I get momentary bouts of happiness? Yes. Pulling off of the showroom floor in a brand new car feels really good. It does. But it's not fulfilling. And there's a drastic difference between happiness and fulfillment, right? So then I ended up leaving my 6-figure income to start this podcast thing. And I went from making a lot of money to zero money. But I had a moment where I realized that I was the most proud of myself that I had ever been. And that was very different. I was broke. I was lonely. Nobody cared about what I was doing, but I cared about what I was doing for maybe the first time in my life. And there was something to that pride and being proud of what I was doing and the person that I was becoming that helped me understand that I was chasing fulfillment at that point more than happiness through external things. And that's really been the journey. This is very fulfilling. My life is harder than it's ever been. But my life is very hard by choice. I'm privileged pressure. Yeah. But it's also the most fulfilling it's been. I think there's something to that.
Nice, man. What a powerful story. I really like it. And I really liked when you said it's about being proud of yourself. I think at the end of the day, if you cannot live with who you are, chasing other people's expectations of you, well, what's the point? It's your life.
Yeah.
And as you already mentioned slightly before, there is the inner expectations, but there is also these outward expectations, which maybe you didn't face. But so many of us, we've been told we need to have a degree, we need to be married by 30, kids by 35, be a millionaire by 25, or you're a loser. And many of such expectations are goals that we did not set ourselves. Someone told us to. How do we go about shedding these narratives and expectations of the outside world and build narratives and set expectations that serve our most authentic self?
I would say in order to set expectations and goals and designs from a internal place, from an aligned place, we have to know what that means to us. So I always suggest sitting down and writing out what your core values are, what your core beliefs are, and what your core aspirations are. Because my core values and my core beliefs and my core aspirations are different than yours. So if I tell you you should live like me because I'm fulfilled, that doesn't work. So I think that's step one, is understanding that anybody who has expectations for you, unless they are wired the same exact way you are, their expectations might not be fulfilling at all. They might actually be terrible. That's why I think entrepreneurship is an interesting thing, because it sounds sexy. And there's a lot of people that say, well, you should never work a 9-to-5 and blah, blah. There's a lot of people that should work 9-to-5s because there's certainty and there's security and there's benefits and there's health insurance. Good for you if that's what you value. So I think it's that conversation of, as a human being, what are your beliefs? What do you think life is about? Do you think life is about fun and hanging out? Do you think it's about maximizing your own potential and contributing to the world? Okay, cool. What do you value? You value humility, work ethic, consistency, family. Awesome. And then what do you aspire to deep within yourself? Do you aspire? Well, here's a good story. We had somebody on our team, and this happens pretty often. When somebody joins the team, they say, I want to start a podcast like you guys. Awesome. Here's the equipment. This is what I suggest. I'll help you. We'll edit it. We got you. And he started a podcast, and I think he was like 60 episodes in. And I said, what do you want this to become? And he said, dude, I want to be way bigger than you guys. I want to be like the next Gary Vaynerchuk. It's like, I don't know what it's going to take because I'm not there yet, but let's have a real conversation. I said, I mean this with love. On a scale of 0 to 10, how important is it for you to get your kids off the bus every day? He said, oh, dude, 10 out of 10. Cool. On a scale of 0 to 10, how important is it for you to eat dinner with your family every night? He's like, dude, 10 out of 10. Cool. Awesome. What about like going to your children's sporting events and that type of stuff? Oh, dude, I'll never miss that stuff. Cool. I mean this with all the love in the world, brother. I don't think this path is for you. I just don't. I'm not having children. There's a reason for that. That is a conscious decision that I just don't think it would be best for me or my children to bring children in the world with the life that I'm trying to live. So that's just an example of core values, core beliefs, and core aspirations in conflict. If you ever feel misaligned, it's most likely because one of those three or multiples of those three are in conflict. And just to wrap it up, when we take somebody else's expectations for us, we're taking that based on their core values, their core beliefs, their core aspirations. Of course it feels misaligned. It's not based on what we value, what we believe, and what we aspire to.
Right. Very eloquently said.
I appreciate it.
Know thyself. That's the base. And yeah, this is something I've done very recently in my own life. I'm 29 now, and I've never done it before. Up until last year, values meant nothing to me. And that's where my life had the least direction. And now that, I've sat down, done the work, and set some values, suddenly, wherever I see, it helps me just aim onto what I should be doing. It just gives me direction.
What's your number one value?
My number one goal, let's say, in life is not to just a certain amount of money or a certain amount of achievement. That would all be great. But is to live the everyday as joyful as possible. Because life doesn't consist of the highlights. Those will come once a month, once a year, once a decade if you're aiming high. You cannot wait to live for that. So for me, it's just, can I enjoy my day-to-day as joyful as possible? If so, I'm happy.
I love it. I love it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, so I believe that role models are also very, very, very important when it comes to forming the right idea of success in your mind. Who are the greatest role models that shaped who you are now? And I want to assume that there've been different ones before you hit rock bottom. So, and if so, how do they differ with each other?
Man, very honestly, and this very scary for me to share, I don't know if I ever really found a role model that I looked up to.
Wow.
There were and maybe this is the case with everybody, there were traits from people that I looked up to. When I was young, I always looked up to people that protected other people. So I remember when I was really young, my uncle and I would watch hockey. And I always enjoyed the hockey fights, not just because of the fight, but because of the psychology under this guy on the team is the one who goes and fights for the rest of the team. There's something about that always, always, always inspired me. It always inspired me to stand up for people. So that was something that I found in hockey enforcers. There was, I lived in Massachusetts for most of my life, so I liked the Boston Bruins. And there was a guy named Sean Thornton, and he was the enforcer. He fought all the time, but he was also a guy who had his own charity, and he seemed like a really positive man. That was something that always inspired me. The problem is I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of people that I thought were going to be my role models. And the closer you get to someone, the closer you get to the truth. And
don't meet your heroes.
That there's a reason they say that. Now, I will say I've met some people that I really looked up to from a distance, and the closer I've gotten to them, the better they've gotten. So, but unfortunately, that has been the exception to the rule. Unfortunately. So that's always been really hard. I'm somebody who's very character focused. I really care about who you are behind the scenes more than what you show in front of the scenes. I don't care about that. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter in the real world. It doesn't matter when you put your head down on the pillow at night. So very honestly, I haven't had a lot of success when it comes to finding people to look up to. Because every time I would get close to that person, I would realize, oh my goodness, they're just really good at putting on a show. And that was always hard. And I'm trying to be the type of person that I needed. I would say my business partner, Alan, is a role model. He's a great man, a very just healthy, positive man that I can look up to. Like that's why we work so well together. But outside of that, in terms of male role models, I haven't had a lot of luck. And then even the ones that maybe I did look up to, as I've gotten older, and I think this is kind of a common human experience, when I look back, I realize how much of a mess they were. It's like, I didn't realize that person was an alcoholic. And I didn't understand that at the time. I didn't realize that. I don't want to look up to that. That's just not who I aspire to be, right? If you like having a drink on the weekend, you do you. I like a strong whiskey as much as the next guy. But now with a higher awareness, it's hard to take those lessons when you realize that the person was struggling with their own thing. And everybody is, right? I'm struggling with my own stuff too, but yeah, that's a challenging one for sure.
Yeah, I feel you, man. I feel you. I think as the younger you are, the more you deify your role models. But then again, they're flawed as much as you are. They're human.
Yep.
And I think it's just gotten so good in a single domain in life that is so admirable, and it just makes you forget how, well, they're the same as you. They're only human.
Everybody is
human.
Yeah, I think we look up to celebrities, and then something comes out that they were like rude or whatever. It's like they're just a person. They're just a person. Doctors, nurses, teachers. I know I won't say I have friends. Yeah, I do. I have friends that are doctors. They struggle with stuff behind the scenes. And nurses, they struggle. Teachers, everybody is going through their own stuff. And I think the more that you work through your own stuff, you realize that I think at the end of the day, it's our goal to be our own role models. Because when everybody else is away, what do? Right? If I want to be the type of person that I could look up to, I really do. Is dumb or silly or fortune cookie-esque as that might sound, like that's really what I'm playing. I just want to be proud of myself. Because if I'm not proud of myself, it doesn't matter who's proud of me.
Yeah. Be the change you want to see in the world.
You know it, 100%. Yep.
I saw one of your Instagram stories yesterday where you said how, I quote, "This journey has taken pieces of me that I will never get back." And I love that. because you want to change the world. And that's just reminding me how balance is a myth, or maybe that a balanced life is a life of mediocrity. If you want to cruise through your life and, have the Friday night out, by all means, choose balance. But if you want to be one of the greatest, determined to change the world, remembered for generations, there is no balance. There is only the sacrifice of everything else other than the things that bring you closer to your goals. How do you make peace with that sacrifice, Kevin?
I've lived life the other way and I regretted it. I lived life the other way trying to fit in and trying to hit the status quo, and I always ended up miserable. So I want to live a life that's deeply meaningful. And then I think there was also a point in my life. So in high school, I was training to fight mixed martial arts. I wanted to be a professional mixed martial arts fighter. And I remember everybody doubted it and made fun of it. I was pumping gas at the time. I was working at the gas station, and people would come in, just making fun of me. Like, Kev, you really should come up with a plan B or C. You're not going to be a professional fighter. It's like, well, thanks. Thanks for the support. I appreciate that very much. But I got a lot of significance in the fact that I was trying to do something that I didn't know anybody else personally was doing. There was something to that felt really good to me, that even if I don't make it, I'm trying to chart a course that doesn't exist for me. And there's something to that. So I think I started to get significance from the fact that I was almost always taking the path of most resistance. We didn't talk about this really, but I think it's important to touch on. I've quit almost every job I've ever had without having another job. And people would be like, wait, you're just going to quit? It's like, I don't want to do this anymore. This sucks. I want to go do something else. So I went to the fire academy, and I didn't make any money. And then I found a job to pay the bills. And it was like, what are the odds that I'm going to become a firefighter? Pretty low. Well, then I ended up getting another job that was really cool, and I had a lot of opportunities. I always seem to get lucky with stuff like that. So when I ended up leaving my job and we started this, and Alan and I sat down and said, look, we want to create the most successful self-improvement company in terms of impact ever. Our lives essentially are never going to look the same as the people around us, because they can't, because we're playing a different game. I like it. I like it. I like the fact that we're doing something that matters deeply to me. And honestly, I don't like going out to bars and clubs and stuff anyway. So that's not really a sacrifice for me. I think the sacrifice that's more than anything is the sacrifice that the people around me have been forced to make. When my wife and I got together, she said, you have to promise me one thing. And I said, yeah, what is it? And she said, you'll never force me to be an entrepreneur. And I said, done and done. No, I don't want that for you. And I said, the only thing I need you to promise me is you'll never ask me to leave the podcast. Because if you ever ask me to leave the podcast, I can't be with you. This is my thing. I'm dedicating my life to this. I will die for this. 0 questions asked. I realize how statistically rare it is to find that for someone. It's a privilege to have found that. It's a lot of pressure. I know it seems like a lot of weight, and it is. But it's a privilege. The fact that I get to do what I love every day, that is a freaking privilege. And I don't ever want to lose sight of that. And I'm also very honest with myself of the fact that I don't want to live life. I mean, what's the alternative for me? I don't want to go back. I've been there. I tried it. That didn't work for me. I think this is the life that I'm supposed to be living. And if I ever wake up and I realize it's not, then I'll have a conversation with my business partner and I'll figure out something else. I just don't anticipate that happening anytime soon.
I love it. Nice.
Appreciate it.
Nice. Okay. In that case, let's move to consistency and commitment. Consistency is one of the things that I've been struggling my whole life the most. And it's very fascinating to me because it's something so simple, but it's just not so easy. What does consistency look like? Is it doing something every day? Or do I fail if I skip a day? How do you relate to consistency?
I think consistency is a principle. Just like kindness is a principle. You can be somebody who has a principality of kindness. You still have off days, though. You have a day where you didn't get enough sleep and maybe you speak to your partner in a tone that you do not want to represent, and you catch yourself and say, damn, I'm better than that. I think consistency is kind of the same thing, where I like doing stuff daily. Because for me, it works better. It's hard for me to remember every Friday at noon I do this thing. Like, there's a reason I have a hat on. I forgot to get a haircut. It's because I only get a haircut every 6 weeks. It's not a habit. It's not ingrained. So I like doing the same things every day because it takes all of the conscious thought out of it. I do the same habits every day. Now, Sunday, I usually don't work. Sunday's family day. Would you say I'm not consistent because I don't do everything 7 days a week? I don't know, right? I think it's more of a principle than anything. So that's the way I look at it. I look at it as if you can have positive behaviors 70, 80, 90% of the time, you are going to be wildly successful. Wildly successful. We had a young lady named Lori Harder on our podcast early on, and she said, consistent 70% days are better than spotty 100% days. And I'll never forget that. So that's how I look at consistency. You're moving the needle in the right direction as often as possible. And depending on what you're aiming for as your final goal, you're going to have to be more consistent than other people. You just are. That's the way it's set up, right? But it's up to you to decide, what does consistency mean? When do you let yourself off the hook? Does that affect your self-worth? I mean, there's a lot of layers under that. But yeah, moving in the right direction at an appropriate clip based on what the end goal is.
Right. And we beat ourselves up so much when, we skip a day and we feel bad. But no one ever hits it with 100% accuracy. It's just unsustainable. That being said, you do not just stumble upon success. Yes, luck is a big part, but you can be a master of your craft if you occasionally show up once a week. If you go to the gym once a month or once every 2 weeks and give 100%, you're not going to see results. If you go 5 days a week or even better every day, but just 60% of what you can do, you're going to see results. So don't beat yourself up, but also don't just leave it to luck, because no one just stumbled upon success ever.
No. I think this is my take on beating yourself up. Don't beat yourself up beyond what you believe is possible for you. This is always so hard to explain. I beat myself up. If I don't do a great job on this episode, I will get off here and say, Kev, that was terrible. Do better. But I've done this 3,000 times. I wasn't that way in the beginning. So I think as your competence raises in something and then your potential is higher, then maybe that's when you have the conversation with yourself. I don't think beating yourself up is necessarily asking yourself to do better. I think it's the juggling act of gratitude and ambition. We call it grateful ambition. I'm grateful for what I have. I'm ambitious to get to the next level. You could call it a lot of different things. Grateful, dissatisfaction, whatever. There's a lot of ways you can label it. I'm grateful that I had the opportunity to be on this podcast today, and next time I will take this lesson and make sure that this mistake doesn't happen again. Versus saying, I'm terrible, I'm the worst, I'm never going to be good at this, that was not valuable at all, I should probably just quit. Those are two very, very different conversations. So I think if you can make it constructive and it doesn't hurt your self-belief and your self-worth, and it's based on a place of, I'm grateful for what I did and I know I can do better, smarter, faster, whatever, I think that is a better place to live. But it all depends on the person that's on the other end of the feedback that they're giving themselves.
Right. And I think it's important to understand that there is no magic to it. You're already being consistent. Maybe you play video games with your buddies every day for a couple of hours. Maybe you binge watch series every night before sleep. You definitely doom scroll every day, so you can be consistent. Yet you fail to do so on the things that matter, on the things that are best for you. How do we change that?
I think you start with the understanding that you have. You're most likely not inconsistent. You're just consistent in the wrong direction. we all have consistent behaviors, just many times they're not serving us. So the best two ways that I know are public accountability. In our branding, in our podcast intro, it says self-improvement in your pocket every single day from anywhere on the planet, completely free. If I miss an episode, I got to change the intro. And I don't want to do that. I want to be the show that does an episode every day. That there's so much public accountability there. So that's one. So find a peak performance partner, find a Facebook group, find a coach, find an app, whatever it is, right? There's running apps, there's meditation apps, there's book apps. There's so many apps that are built to gamify extra accountability. That's one. The second one is you make the thought of not doing the positive behavior more uncomfortable than actually doing the positive behavior. So there was a time where, this was maybe a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, the business had grown a ton and I was just struggling to keep up with everything, and I just wasn't going to the gym, and I was letting myself down, and I felt bad about myself. And I went to my wife one day and I handed her a $100 bill. And I said, I need you to do me a favor. And she said, yeah, what do you need? And I said, if I don't go to the gym for the next 7 days in a row, I need you to rip that $100 bill up in front of me. And she said, Kev, there's no way I'm going to do that. And I said, babe, it's already done in my mind. The pain of me watching you do that, the pain of the disappointment that you would have in me if you had to do that is enough to make me go to the gym. And I went to the gym every single day, and it worked really, really well. And we call that the $100 habit now. That's something we talk about all the time. We call it a $100 habit.
Nice.
The fear of not accomplishing it was greater than the resistance of me just pushing through and doing it. And there's something to that. There's something called a commitment device. Either I blank am going to go for one 15-minute walk this week, or I am going to donate $100 to a foundation or charity I don't believe in. That. If you have somebody in your family that had lung cancer or smoked cigarettes for their entire life and found out at the end of their life that it was really bad for them, you're not going to want to donate to a tobacco company. That the thought of that alone is going to motivate you to do something different. So I think public accountability is one, and then just making more necessity around your goals and your habits and what you want is another. And then James Clear talks a lot about this in his book, Atomic Habits. There's discipline and there's design. Discipline is, no matter what, I always get up at the same time and I go exercise. Awesome. Design is, my gym clothes are out, my water bottle is out, my AirPods are out, my keys are there, everything is set up to make there as little resistance as possible. So when design is garbage, you have to rely almost purely on discipline. When design is strong, it takes a little bit less discipline to do the thing, and it makes it a little bit easier. So those are usually the three directions I go in, and they've been the most beneficial to me. So those are the ones I speak on the most.
No, I love it. So you don't have to discipline yourself from eating cookies from the cupboard if there are no cookies in the cupboard.
That's great design. Yeah, it's a great design.
Great design.
Yeah.
So I like that, but what is something, because obviously you have so many episodes and you coach so many people, what is something about consistency that is maybe so obvious that people just keep missing the most?
Consistency starts with embarrassingly small goals. Yeah. When
yes,
you see, the collective you sees us now 2,000 episodes in, doing 7 episodes a week. What you don't see is in the beginning, I could barely do 1 episode a week. That now, that's not hard for me. But in the beginning, it was so challenging. I think we fall into the trap of thinking that we have to set these massive goals. Okay, you and I don't know when this episode is dropping, but you and I are recording this the second week of January. There's a lot of people out there that had New Year's resolutions that have just died.
Yeah.
If they died, number one, don't beat yourself up unless you have really high self-belief, and then give yourself the feedback you need that's constructive. My question is, did you set a goal that was too big? Did you say, I'm going to lose 75 pounds this year, instead of saying, I'm going to start in month 1 by going to the gym 4 times. And then month 2, I'll go 8 times. And then month 3, I'll go 12. And then by the end of the year, I'm going 5 days a week. Those are 2 very, very different goals, right? One setting you up for success, one setting you up for failure. So don't be afraid to set small goals. You can build on success. But if you feel like you failed, it's really hard to start over. That's a really big thing. And then another one that I don't think a lot of people think about is, and don't villainize me for this, consistency is going to differentiate you from the people around you. We have a lot of workout streaks going on our team. So Alan has worked out every day for the last 1,300 days or something crazy. Amy on our team.
That's brutal.
It's brutal.
That's brutal.
Amy on our team has worked out 30 minutes a day every day for the last 900. Over 900 at this point. And then Brandon on our team has run a mile every day for the last maybe coming up on 900 days, something wild. But think about, what are their conversations like with their friends? Oh, what do you run a mile every day? Get a life, dude. No, this is awesome. Being consistent is awesome. Not when the people around you get insecure about the fact that you're doing something every day that they don't ever do. It can be a mirror for people. So that's another thing that is obvious to me now, but it wasn't obvious to me in the beginning, and there's been a lot of pain associated with all those things, unfortunately.
That's what they say. You are the average of the 5 people around you. If
You
those
know it.
people feel bad, that you're doing well and they don't want you to do better than them, they're very tacitly going to keep you down. Yeah, you're right. And I like the thing about making consistency small wins is it's as simple as it gets, but that's all about it. I don't know who said this, but he said, when I first started running, I just put on the shoes and then went back to sleep. The second day, I just put the shorts, the shoes, and I still felt resistant. And then I went back to sleep. And then win after win, he built up momentum.
Yeah.
And now, I don't know, I think he's like an ultra marathon or something that just loves doing this. So yeah, the starting small is very, very, very obvious, and people skip it.
It's just not sexy. That's all.
It's
just
not sexy. That's it.
It's not sexy.
There is no secret sauce. There's no secret sauce.
No.
It's simple, boring things every day.
Yep. But it works.
It works. It works, but people also are very distracted, of course, including myself. And that's one of the reasons we are not consistent nowadays. And how do you personally deal with distractions? Or maybe there are some interesting things that you've heard around that you might want to mention. How do you deal with distractions?
I would say social media is probably the biggest one for me. Again,
Do you just eliminate it? Do you close them? Do you leave your phone somewhere?
No, because I operate my entire business online. So
you can
I'm in WhatsApp for too many hours a day, talking to clients and talking to teams. So I'm in WhatsApp attached to my phone. I mean, my phone is right here. It's not far away. What I will say is I don't have any notifications.
That's good.
It doesn't bing. It doesn't ding. It doesn't ring. There's no notifications that come up. You can't get a hold of me. I'm on Do Not Disturb all day. There's only 2 people that can call me and get through, Alan and my wife. Outside of that, it goes straight to voicemail. That helps. I think it depends. It depends on, my office is pretty boring. I don't have anything on my desk that I can touch and play with. So there's nothing fun that I'm going to grab. I think you have to understand how easy it is to go unconsciously into a behavior. So social media is designed for you to just doom scroll. The faster you can come to the awareness that you're wasting time, the better off you're going to be. So for me, it's just about catching myself faster and faster and faster and faster. Outside of that, I just kind of eliminate as many things as I can to make sure that I'm not getting distracted. My wife and I have a very honest dialogue where when the office door is shut, just pretend I'm not here. just assume I'm not here. I know you might have a question about something, text me and I'll get to it when I can. Just assume I'm not here. The other thing that I think is very valuable and very important is, at least on the iPhone, I don't know about Android, but you can literally go in and see how much time you're spending on each app. That is a great piece of awareness to have.
I always feel sad when I do that.
Same. I think I always am going to feel sad because even when you get better, you tend to, the trend line, if the trend line's going the right direction, that's good. But yeah, outside of that, I'm pretty much locked in the office most of the day. So it's not the same for me. There's a bunch of different apps where your phone will kick you off of social media after 15 minutes or 30 minutes. I saw this recently where there's a watch that will shock you. Gently shock you.
Okay.
You program certain behaviors that you don't want to do, and it'll shock you when you do them. So picking up your phone might be considered one of those behaviors. So that's out there. So there's a lot of apps and there's a lot of products and services that I think are super helpful because, again, discipline and design. My office is designed so I don't have to rely a ton upon discipline. The social media team that is on our team posts my social media, so I have less reason to be on social media. That has helped me a ton. I've noticed a drastic shift in that. So maybe automating certain things where you can automate them, delegating where you can delegate. Those are a couple tips. But yeah, I don't know if I'm the best example because I am very blessed to be able to set up my office in a way that's just boring.
Lucky you, man. Lucky you, and unlucky those people who have to try to electrocute themselves.
You got to do what works,
Oh,
well,
that's so...
talk about necessity and talk about necessity. The necessity is there. It's going to hurt you to do the thing that you know you shouldn't be doing. It's you might build a new behavior that way.
Right. Another roadblock that we often encounter when we try to commit to something is doubt. It always somehow manages to creep in and make you feel insecure and make you think that you're an imposter and that maybe you're just not cut for this. How do we get rid of that voice and prove to ourselves that we are cut out for anything we put our mind into?
Fear is a fence. So if you have a fear that you can't do something, you're not good enough, you're not smart enough, you literally take it out of the opportunities that you'll give yourself. So you walk up to the fence of fear and you say, life on the other side of that looks pretty cool, but unfortunately this is where my life ends. And everything beyond the fence is not an option. I have not found a better way other than doing the thing that scares you in a micro dose. If let's say you are somebody who you feel like you have a really good story and you've overcome a lot of stuff and you say, if only I could talk to people about what I've been through, that might be inspirational and motivational for them. I could never be a public speaker. I would say, don't even think about speaking publicly. Think about speaking into your phone and showing nobody. That's where I would start. Going back to the small steps thing. I gave a speech one time. Somebody was talking to me after and they said, I want to be a speaker. I said, cool. What do you think you should be doing? And they said, I don't know. I said, well, you should probably be speaking. We got to get you speaking. But not what I did, where I started, not where you see me today, where you never would have seen me because there's nobody watching. This person recorded a video into their phone. They sent it to me and I showed it to nobody else. That's how I would start. So I think that, again, we don't see yourself at the top of the mountain. Nobody goes from the bottom to the top. It doesn't work that way. We tend to only see people when they're at the top. I didn't see Taylor Swift when she was playing in a cornfield somewhere in front of 4 people. Nobody did. Right? There was only the 4 people that saw her. But now everybody knows who she is. Well, more of her life was spent in becoming the person she is today than actually being the person that she is today. And I think it's very hard to conceptualize that. So I would say, do the thing that scares you in the smallest dose humanly possible. That way, when you get feedback, if unfortunately it's negative feedback, it doesn't break you. And you don't have such a negative relationship with a thing that you never do it again. You take the lessons and then you say, okay, this time I talked into my phone, it went better than I expected. Let me send this over to Kev, or let me send this over to my mom or my sister, my brother, whatever, my partner. Oh, they said it was really good. All right, cool. Maybe I could make an anonymous social media page where I could talk and I won't show my face and nobody will know it's me. And let me see what happens. Oh, I'm actually getting some interesting positive feedback. Okay, cool. Then what? I just think of it as a stairway. That's probably the best way I could explain it, because here's the thing. I don't know if the fear ever really goes away, because as you get more competent, you get higher quality opportunities. So the distance you can fall gets higher as you get better. Still scary. You're just way more competent and you have way more reps in the arena. So yeah, that's what I would say.
Nice. Well, that already answers my next question, so I'm not going to go through it. No, nice. I like it. And I want to touch again a little bit around consistency, and how consistency is really nothing without direction. Without knowing where you aim, it can be worthless. We already touched a bit on, role models, but in case you cannot find one, and in case you cannot find a mentor, as you said, how do you gain clarity on what to work on? What's the next step? Do you need a plan? If so, how do I draw a plan? How does even a good plan look like? So where do you start?
Oof. I would say probably books. So here's the thing. And again, I'm a podcaster. I love podcasts. But a podcast episode is not hard to record in the grand scheme of things. Where a book takes you years of research and years of life. And it's just a big commitment. A podcast, come to me, I can get you you could start a podcast today. It's okay. If you want to write a book, that's a whole process. So I think the information is usually more vetted, and it's more well researched than maybe just a YouTube video is. I love YouTube. I'm a huge fan. That is really good for fundamentals and principles. When it comes to like the specifics, I think you have to find a coach. I think that's probably the best way to do it. You can go online right now, and there's a million places you can learn about growing your podcast and monetizing your podcast. But if you and I are talking behind the scenes, I can say, well, what's important to you? What products or services? There's just more specificity. So what I've found is the higher you are in terms of the scaling of the content, the less specific it usually is. The lower you get in terms of the scale, the more specific it gets. That's why one-on-one coaching is one of the most valuable things in the world, because I'm not saying, well, if you do this, then you do that. No, I'm saying, tell me exactly what you do. So yeah, books are a really good place to start, from fundamentals, principles, and stories that you can connect to. And then as you get more specific on, okay, well, now I'm tracking habits. What habits should I track? You can ask somebody who is getting the results in life that you want, and make sure they're vetted, obviously. And then eventually it's like, well, I want to make money with this. I would probably just find someone who's already making money doing it and try to have a conversation with them. The deeper you go, the more specific you need to be, is what I would say.
Solid advice.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And what if you did put in all the work and you remain consistent, but just it doesn't pay off? Maybe you've been failing for decades. How do you live with that?
You understand that consistency isn't enough. Consistency is not a strategy, it is a requirement. It's not enough just to be consistent, especially now, because there's a lot of people being consistent. Consistency without improvement doesn't work the same. So if you do get to that point, you have a very honest conversation with yourself about, okay, well, I was really consistent, but did I focus on 1% improvements every single time? If yes, honestly, and the hard truth is, maybe the thing that you're doing is not the thing that you can actually be the best in the world at. Or maybe the thing that you're doing is just not suited for you. I could put the next 20 years of my life into basketball, and somebody who is 6'6" and younger than me, they could put less in and get way more out of it because I'm 5'5" on a good day. Like that's probably not the path for me. I could try it, but I'm probably not going to get as far in basketball as I could maybe in podcasting, hypothetically. So even at the beginning of your journey, figuring out what do you have the natural inclination for is really, really, really important. And then if we take nothing else away from this conversation, this is the thing that has really stuck with me very recently. Like, this was a new understanding. Consistency is not a strategy. It is a requirement. Be consistent. Awesome. But consistency also suggests that you're improving. So if we were to break it into kind of a framework, everything starts from a place of sustainability. Start something sustainably. Practice it consistently. Focus on improvement. Rinse and repeat that cycle forever. You're most likely going to end up a little bit further or a lot further, depending on who you are, than if you just said, I'm going to do this consistently. Consistency without improvement is just not going to take you as far as you probably want to get to.
Yeah, I myself have met many people who've been doing something for like 30 years and that's at the same level.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what if you know what you cut through? Let's say that what you're doing, you have a natural inclination for. It can be draining over the long run. How do you keep putting in the work without losing that spark, that fire inside you, which gets you going, especially at the beginning of a project?
It's another challenging one because I don't have
you
that.
You can just talk about yourself. Maybe if you can generalize it as one sort of advice, maybe just how you keep finding your own spark.
For me, I know it'll be worth it. So there was a TED Talk. The 3 beliefs you must have to do something or start something new. You must believe that it's humanly possible. You must believe that it is personally possible. And this is the 3rd belief that I think a lot of us miss. You must believe it'll be worth it. If you don't think it's worth it, why would you do it? It would make no logical sense. If I woke up today and I looked at this podcast and I was like, it's not worth my time. Hey, I would can it. I wouldn't be here. But to me, it's worth it. It's humanly possible. I know people are on podcasts, so I know that. Check that box. It's personally possible. I know I can do it. I've done a lot of podcasts. Cool. It'll be worth it. And I think the level that we think something is worth it is the level that we will pour into it, because you'll regret it if you don't. So for me, that's always the answer. I don't wake up every day excited to crush the day. I'm not that guy. I'm not that guy who's going to be like, I get pulled out of bed. My dreams wake me up. No, my alarm clock wakes me up. Some days I curse at it. Other days I get out of it. It depends. For me, it's always gratitude that I get to do what I love every day. Don't ever forget that, Kev. This was your dream. Do not ever forget that. If you forget that, you've lost sight of this whole thing. And I have a very deep belief that it will be worth it. That, to me, is the best answer I can give, because you're going to take a lot of L's. And you're going to feel like you're losing a lot of the time. But if you feel like it's worth it, and it remains worth it to improve and practice the habits and make the calls, whatever it is, I think you're probably going to do it for longer than other people would. So yeah, it's the worth it factor that I would say.
Nice. Find what's worth for you.
100%.
Well, personally, I do want to think that I have found what is worth it for me, but yet I keep getting in my way. Personally, what I think has kept me back the most is self-sabotage. Why do you think people engage in self-sabotage and keep getting in the way, even when they know what they're doing is just the best for them?
I never realized that people were afraid of success. I thought everybody was only afraid of failure because I'm afraid of failure. Doesn't everybody want to be successful? Isn't that why we do the things we do? My business partner, we were at an event one time and he was up on stage and the person was going through the fears of the human. And she listed off a bunch and he didn't resonate with any. And I said, hey, ask him if he's afraid of success. And she asked him, and that was the thing. And he was crying, and it was this very powerful thing. So every time Alan accomplished more in his past, he got villainized more by the people in his life. That creates this, well, if I am successful, then I'll be alone. Let me self-sabotage. Let me play small. Let me stay invisible. If getting what you want creates a fear that you don't, you're going to self-sabotage. If getting what you want is directly in conflict with what you think you're worthy of, you will find a way to mess that up. Unfortunately, I was coaching a client one time, and he said, brother, I just don't feel like I believe in myself enough. It's like, I know you, that's not it. But okay, let's flesh this out. I said, on a scale of 0 to 10, how much do you believe in your own unique capability to see something in your mind and then build it in the external world? And I didn't even finish the sentence, and he started smiling. He's like, 12 out of 10. I know that I've been working with you for a minute. On a scale of 0 to 10, after you build this proverbial castle, and the inside is beautiful, and the view is beautiful, and it is just immaculate, on a scale of 0 to 10, how worthy do you feel to walk in there and own it? And he said, maybe 2 out of 10. I said, brother, the reason you're not more successful is because you don't think you're worthy of more success. And every time you get an opportunity that pokes that, you abandon it. I think those are probably the simplest answer is it directly pokes a deep core wound that is more fear-based than the amount of success that you would get. The amount of success that you're trying to get is poking the wound, so you realize that it's safer to abandon it. That's the blanket statement answer I would give.
Nice. So people just don't think they deserve it. In a way, they just don't deserve that success. I see that. How about on the groups that you coach? What are the most common things you see people struggle nowadays that we haven't mentioned yet?
Family is...
Oh, really?
Yeah, family is a big one. Unfortunately, some of the people closest to us harm us the most without knowing it. The judgment of family, your family. So here's the thought. It's not always negative. It's not always toxic. It's not always intentional. But the people closest to you like you the way you are oftentimes, and they don't want to see you change. Or they don't want to see you take a big chance because what if you fail? They don't want to see you get hurt. So that's a really common one. Being villainized for changing your identity. Oh, you track habits now? You're into self-improvement? Like, what? That must be a cult, right? It's like, no. I'm just reading books about getting better. A lot of people get villainized for that. That is a huge one. And then I would say just leaning more, I guess this is kind of the overtone of everything we talked about, but leaning more and more into who that person is. I think there's a common belief for people that all of me is either too much or not enough. So if I showed you the real authentic version of me, you would think I'm arrogant, you'd think I'm this and this and this. Or if I showed you who I really am, you would say, oh, you're not nearly as smart as I thought you were. You're not nearly as good as I thought you were. You're way less than I thought. I think that's a very deep fear that we have is all of me, the authentic version of Kevin, is either not enough or too much. So I'm going to pretend to be somebody I'm not because I want love and I don't want to be alone and I don't want to have to do this journey all by myself. I'd say those are probably 3 of the most common deep things we see.
Wow. Well, yeah, I think that I resonate a lot with some of the things that you said, and it's not easy, man. It's not easy. That's why you need to surround yourself with people that will make it easier for you because they care about you. And that's why you need to keep working on yourself. But when you keep working, once you get into the self-development sphere, you hear a lot of things. Like, you don't know where to start, obviously, but a lot of it, not everything is good advice. How do you distinguish good advice from bad advice? Like, I'm sure there is bad advice out there. What are some examples maybe that's, of bad advice?
This one's always really hard because it's personal to you. So if the advice that you hear reinforces your beliefs, I would question the advice. The only reason I say that is because let's say there's somebody out there right now, and again, controversial take, so sit with me through this. I don't mean it in a negative way. Say there's somebody out there right now who works 95 hours a week. They are grinding their face off. And they come across a piece of content that says, grind, 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 grind. That's the only way to succeed. Blah, 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 blah. I'm willing to bet that the piece of advice that, hey, you should take 15 minutes and meditate would actually be really good for that person. Because they're so far on one pole. They're so far on that. Just like if somebody out there is hyper spiritual and the universe has my back and the law of attraction, if it's meant to be, it's meant to be. A piece of advice that says, hey, unfortunately, a huge piece of manifestation is taking action. And if you're not taking action, you're most likely not going to create the reality that you have in your mind. Let's start tracking some habits. It's uncomfortable to hear that because it kind of goes in the opposite of what you want to believe. But if you're so far on that other pole, we have to move you closer to the middle. That's what we've seen is, I didn't want to track habits. I didn't want to do any of that. Well, then I did that. And then I had this phase where I was like super spiritual. And I was reading Deepak Chopra and Sadhguru. And that was a really good phase for me. And then I came back to hyper tactical. And then I went back to like law of attraction and spirituality. And eventually you move closer and closer and closer to the middle of what is optimal for you. The middle is different for everyone though. My middle is way higher geared towards action than it is spirituality. It's the way I want to be. I don't want to be someone who thinks the universe is going to take care of me. I want to go create it and let me see what happens. So yeah, I would say that if the advice is continuing to push you towards the pole that you're already near, I think there's probably value in seeing out the other side because there might be a lot of lessons in there. You don't need to focus on your strengths always. Sometimes the thing to do is to focus on your weakness. So if you're grinding your face off and you have no connection to any spirituality, that's probably going to be beneficial in some way, shape, or form, even if it's for the internal self, not the external world. And then same on the other end. If you're hyper connected to source and spirituality and all that, but you are struggling with exercise, a little grit goes a long way.
I never thought about it that way, really.
Same,
something
until
for me
recently.
to ponder. That's a very unique perspective on it, really.
I appreciate it.
What is one question that you find important that you wish podcast hosts would ask you more often?
Why shouldn't people live their life the way you do? Because I think when you're talking to someone, you're not you, the collective you, you're almost always highlighting the high spots. Like, let's talk about your success and you're advising from success. But transparently, I don't think the way I live my life is what's best for everyone. If you want to accomplish exactly what I've accomplished and what I aspire to, sure, right? But most people don't need to be nearly as extreme with the things that I do in order to get the level of results that they want. And I think the second improvement becomes unrealistic. It just goes out the window. So let's say I track 20 habits a day. You don't have to. No, if you track 3 habits, you're going to be way better off than if you track 0. You don't have to track 20 habits a day. I'm wild. I'm crazy. You don't have to be like me. You don't have to do an episode every day. You shouldn't do an episode every day. You should do one a week and then do other stuff too. So just that, I think it's very easy to to be up on the platform and then everything seems like it's the right way, when in reality, everything should be taken through a filter. Everything I say should be filtered because these are my experiences and I always do my best to cater to as many people as possible, but I think that's always an important thing for anybody.
Nice. Yeah. I think that we do take advice too much to heart sometimes, especially when it comes from a position of authority. You somehow convince yourself that, oh, so that's how you do it. And that's exactly how I need to do. I personally found this with morning routines. I would do like 5 routines one after the other just because someone said, "Oh, he's a billionaire. He knows what he's doing. Oh,
Yep.
he's a millionaire." And then I was like, "What am I even doing?" It's just nothing brings. None of these routines brings me closer to my goals, to who I want to be. So, we just take advice to heart too much sometimes.
Yeah, it's hard. It's hard because there's so much advice out there. There's so much advice, and a lot of it's confirmation bias. It's like, I got in an ice bath and now I'm a millionaire. It's like, well, was that it? Are you really good at sales? Like, if you're really good at sales, it's probably not the ice bath, right? But there's layers to that, and that's what makes it super hard.
Yeah. All right. Last question. What do you want to be remembered for?
Being a good man. When I realize that most people hearing this episode have never heard of me and may never hear of me again. So all I have is the hour and 7 minutes that you and I have spent together. That's my legacy. My legacy is the hour and 7 minutes that you and I have spent together. I just want people to know that I cared, that I did my best to add value, and I'm somebody who worked really hard on his character. And yeah, people would say Kev was a good man. That's about all I need.
Well, nice. I think you are a good man. I think you're doing good.
I appreciate it. Well, who knows? When we get off here behind the scenes, I might be completely different, I hope not.
Well, you convinced me, so you've done your part.
Well, I appreciate it. You made it very easy, my friend. You made it very easy.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. Right, Kevin, that's it. Thank you very much, man. Thank you for being in the episode, and I'll see you soon.
All right, my friend. Thank you for having me.